IDF has just eliminated many terrorists, specifically in the West Bank, in the north, and UN doesn't like it. So we'll talk about this. We talk about the operation. We'll talk about what are the problems that the UN, or specifically Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, has with this operation. So I wanted to go to Jonathan first since he is in Israel. Then I learned he's not currently in Israel, but I'll still go to Jonathan. So uh, just some of your quick thoughts about this operation and the response of Antonio Guterres. What do you think?
Well, this guy never ceases to amaze us, doesn't he? Yeah, there's a very significant operation now in the West Bank. I heard 20 Palestinians or something terrorists were eliminated, which is good, of course. I think it's a response to the attempted suicide bombing in Tel Aviv that was luckily didn't come to fruition. And this guy, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this Antonio Guedes, and I'd be really happy if you guys can correct me on this, but I think he has a picture with Yasser Arafat from the 70s. Are you aware of that, guys?
I think so, but let me confirm it.
I'm aware that Arafat has spoken at the United Nations before, so it wouldn't surprise me, but I'm unaware that the current Secretary General, I think that's his title,
No, no,
has
there
a
is a
history
very
of.
old.
Yeah, I see it now.
I can't show it from my screen, but they were mates, and so it's not surprising, this is all part of the propaganda war. Antonio is serving is like the diplomatic wing in the United Nations to give them an air of legitimacy. Every time there's violence, it's the Jews' fault, and he hopes that things will settle down. We need to de-escalate, and it's always obviously we are wrong. Why are we bombing in the West Bank? Probably because we just want to kill some Palestinian kids, because we're just evil, murderous pigs. That's what Jews are, right? So obviously he's against that. So I don't think it's surprising to anyone in Israel that he's against that. He's against everything, and he would never say anything about October 7th. He would never say, this is the Palestinians' fault. They need to bring back the hostages. He would never say something like that. So it's completely conventional, but good for the idea for acting in a more aggressive way. But it is far from what is the proper thing that needs to be done in the West Bank. What needs to be done in the West Bank is the same thing that we have been talking about for so long in this channel about what needs to be done in Gaza. The West Bank is a national security threat to Israel to a massive extent, not as much as in Gaza, but it is a huge risk. There's a lot of weapons there, a lot of armed fighters ready to fight and do, if they could, they would do the same thing that the Palestinians did on October 7th. They would do the same, the West Bank. The only reason they were not able to do that is because the military, the IDF, has a tighter control over the territory. So if they had the situation like the West Bank in Gaza, we would never have a October 7th. But it's still a big danger, and it's good that we're acting, but is far from what is proper. So I think that would be good for start there.
Yeah, I mean, just to provide a bit more context to what you said about the West Bank. So, 5,000 Palestinians across the West Bank have been arrested by the IDF. 2,000 of them have affiliation to Hamas. And this is just since October 7th. And also 27 Israeli security personnel have been killed in the West Bank. And as we said, there's many terrorist attacks coming out of West Bank, and specifically even the Islamic Palestinian Jihad has one of their strongholds in the north of the West Bank, which is one of the location that IDF has been conducting in now. Um, Something also you mentioned about Antonio Guterres being buddy-buddy with Yasser Arafat. something I've talked about with Kirk beforehand a bit, something you have to realize about the UN and specifically the role of the UN Secretary General. To be elected as the UN Secretary General, you need you basically need to be nominated, and Security Council cannot veto it. Mostly meaning the five big nations cannot veto it. So to become a UN Secretary General, you have to be basically aligned with Russians and China, as well as you also, I think, the last process is you have to be actually approved by the UN General Assembly. So you still need a lot of nations, many of them being what we would consider not the freest nations ever. So I think the UN Secretary General is this sort of embodiment of what UN is, and it is this sort of like compromising with evil. So I think you can really see it in the in one person. But let me go to Kirk now, just quickly for some opening thoughts.
I mean, why do we got to get mad at Antonio Gutierrez, right? Like, often, you know, when he's on Twitter, he's often making broad appeals like, hey, we got to make sure we keep civilians safe and that we respect everyone's human rights and that we need ceasefires and we need to end the war because hashtag war is bad. And when he's not posting about that, I mean, if you go through his Twitter timeline, he's always talking about the existential threat that is climate change, and he's trying to find solutions to that. This guy's trying to save the planet, and we're getting mad that he's what, not pro-Israel enough? Is that what I'm hearing?
Actually,
Yes.
when you mentioned his tweets, it reminded me of one video. There is this comedian, I cannot remember his name, but after October 7, he made a post about basically sort of like parodying an actor not knowing who to post in support of. Like, should he post in a support of Palestine or should he post in the support of Israel? And it's like, you know, people get canceled on each side, and then he saw like, oh, I'm gonna check out the UN a foundation for women or something like that. And okay, what are they posting? And he looked up at their Twitter, and it was like trans women are women too, and that was after October 7. And he's like, oh, can I just do that? So I won't get like canceled? Can I just post that? And it's similar to, yeah, I mean, something Kirk has mentioned earlier is, you know, Antonio Guterres was very quick to post about this operation, but something I'm not sure if we mentioned, apparently this attack came as a sort of answer after the failed suicide attack that happened in Tel Aviv, where basically someone affiliated with Palestinian Jihad and Hamas was supposed to basically do a suicide bomb operation, but I think it detonated a bit prematurely, or it failed, and basically it only has, unfortunately still, but only one person was injured because it detonated in an open area. And Kirk looked up what did he post, what did Antonio Guterres post on that day. And yeah, it was this sort of like a general, you know, civilians shouldn't die. Yeah, basically like bad things shouldn't happen. But whenever Israel does something, whenever, and not even Israel does something bad, when Israel does what its responsibility, which is protection of its citizens, and let's say in this case targets a stronghold of a Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is I think the second biggest terrorist group in Gaza, but also has influence in the West Bank. They are quick to jump on Israel.
Yeah, like yesterday when he posted about it, he specifically says the latest developments in the West Bank, including Israel's launch of large-scale military operations, are deeply concerning. So, like, he'll directly call out Israel, but like I think the two posts that I found that maybe you could tie to the Tel Aviv attempt, one was on the 19th and the other was on the 21st. He doesn't call out Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. He just makes these broad appeals to, hey, let's respect human rights and let's make sure civilians are safe. But like he doesn't really call them out or say anything that they're doing is concerning.
And so one of the people eliminated in the IDF operation was Abu Sulja. I also have a different name, Muhammad Jabber. I really hate these names. Who is the commander of a local wing of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And something we know about him, so he was eliminated. Apparently there was a video of him shortly, or at least sometime before this operation, where he talked to the Palestinian people. This video has been shared all around, and it's very much supported. When you see it, you have like hearts emojis under the video. So let's hear a little bit from him.
طبعا أهل غزة اللي بيعيشوا فيه هسه أيام الرسل عاشوه الصبر والمقاومة والمعنويات، وهذا كلياته احنا بنتعلم من أهل غزة، مقاتلين غزة. الحرب من سنة، الحرب 10 شهور، وما زال المقاتلين يبدعون في ساعات القتال، وآلاف الشهداء، آلاف الشهداء من المقاتلين ومن المدنيين، معظم المدنيين من أطفال وكبار بالسن. ومنها يعني من يومين صلاة الفجر اغتالوا ما يزيد على 100 طفل بحجة إنه قيادات، وبحجة إنه يوجد مسلحين، بس عشان يحققوا إنجازات إن إحنا هينا عملنا وإن إحنا سوينا، وإنه مش عارف شو، في فلان، في قيادة، وفي طبعا لا بكشفوا بس إنه أطفال مدرسة. اغتالوا بيساووا رسالة لأهل غزة إنه استمروا وإحنا معكم، إحنا نتعلم منكم. نسأل الله إنه هذا كلياته إنه ربنا يعني أجر وثواب، إنه بلزمش يعني كيف شجاع إنه يعطيكم. أنتوا أهل الصبر، أنتوا أهل الثبات، وهذا الاشي يعني اثبت لنا يعني بصراحة انه طول عمرنا اهل غزة، بس انه بعد هذه المعركة يعني بعد معركة طوفان الاقصى اثبتت لجميع العالم انه شعب غزة قادر على انتهاء دولة اسرائيل. مش شعب غزة فقط لهذا قادر على انتهاء دولة اسرائيل.
So I'd say really well constructed propaganda, and I think it's really nice how oftentimes he uses a certain words, and if you don't know the context, or rather, if you know the context and you know what he really means, it becomes really disturbing. He mentioned that apparently Israel has bombed a mosque where people were praying. Something I haven't mentioned about this specific operation is this was targeting a mosque because Palestinian Islamic Jihad was hiding in a mosque. And we know that Hamas, as well as other terrorist-affiliated groups, do use mosques, do use schools, do use any civilian buildings to basically hide in them. And we see this is being used for propaganda purposes, because now he can go and say, well, Israel is bombing mosques. Something he also mentioned that Al-Aqsa flood or Al-Aqsa battle has influenced or sort of gave motivation to the Palestinian people. And what he meant by this is October 7, which Al-Aqsa flood was the name for the operation of October 7. So he's saying October 7 has given morale boost to the Palestinian people. But yeah, let me go to Jonathan. What did you think about this?
Yeah, thank you for showing this to us, Dan. Yeah, well, first thought that comes in my mind: if their Allah is so great and amazing, why does he allow so many people to die in mosques? If Allah is almighty, all powerful, omniscient, why does he allow people to die in this place of prayer? I don't. Maybe one of our Muslim friends in the comments can answer that.
Can I try to answer that?
Yes, please, Kirk.
I imagine a reason that might be given is that Allah is punishing his people for not being faithful enough to Islamia.
But they're in the mosques. They're doing the Islamomia. I don't know. It's not convincing, Kirk.
They say stuff like that all the time, and you see a lot of this mindset even amongst Christians in the West.
Yeah.
So, and like just reading the Old Testament, it like kind of, I'm like, oh, this is like one of the overarching themes of the Bible is that when people abandon God, God just lets bad and horrible things happen to them as punishment. And you see,
it
like I remember reading
in me that they abandoned God. These people, they're so devout. They're literally killing themselves in the service of their God. Yet their great God and allows them to die in their mosques. It's like it's outrageous.
Malala Yousafzai talks about how like one day she was listening to the radio Mullah and he was like blaming a recent horrible earthquake on the fact that people were not faithful enough to Muhammad and Allah. So I'm just saying like that perspective, that mindset, that's probably what someone might say.
I think when you see this person, you can really see through his eyes how hollow his mind is. And I would presume, I would even give him the benefit of the doubt that he actually believes what he's saying because he looks so stupid. So I think he does literally believe the things he's saying, even though they are false. They don't believe in reality. They are mystics. They are really serious mystics. They're taking their religion extremely seriously. So I do think he actually believes that. And I think the most cynical people are the ones who are leading the international branch of Hamas, that who are billionaires. But I think these soldiers, some of them genuinely believe these horrible ideas. And it's a result of their philosophy, it's a result of their mysticism. And it shows you how it paralyzes the mind and how they don't see reality. So everything conforms to what they believe. It's all rationalization. And yeah, he's an ugly, stupid, awful human being that got what he deserved. So it was an act of justice to eliminate him. And yeah, we see this propaganda every day, and yet the Israelis, they don't get what's wrong. They don't say that. They don't talk about their mysticism, and which led to them to believe in these ideas. We don't attack their ideas at that level, but we say, oh, they did bad things, therefore we should act in our self-defense. It's weak. We have to go at the fundamental. What is the evil? What is the nature of the evil of the Palestinian movement? Why is it so bad? You wanted to say something there?
Yeah, I mean, someone in the chat is saying he looks half-starved. I can assure you, no one in the Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad leadership is starving. They are getting enough of weight.
Maybe he's vegan.
Either from international organizations or even Israel itself. So I wouldn't be worried about that. We also have a...
It would be good that he's starving. Why would he have great food? Why would somebody who lives as a murderer, terrorist, why would he be well fed? Why does he deserve good food? You think he's doing it because he's hungry? If he's hungry, he would have robbed the bakery, or I don't know, robbed the cow. That's not what he was doing, right? He was plotting to send a suicide bomber to blow up some people in Tel Aviv. So what does it have to do with anything that he's hungry?
Yeah, and I recall that Osama bin Laden, wasn't he the son of some like construction mogul in Saudi Arabia that was worth billions of dollars, I think? So yeah, it's not about like material wealth or whatever.
We also have a super chat from Bonnie. Before I move on, Kirk, is there anything else you'd like to add about what he said?
Well, just going back to the video that we watched, it's like the guy, I was trying to keep up with the subtitles because obviously I can't understand his language, but like, yeah, like going side by side with the music, like, yeah, it's pretty you can say pretty motivating, pretty inspiring. If you buy into this insanity, I imagine a video like that might be very motivating and like, yeah, let's get all fired up. But one thing that I found very scary and troubling was all of his appeals to end Israel, which we know it's not just about as many people in the West in America, all the protesters in the streets that, say, oh, we just want to end the genocide. We just want to make sure Palestinians have their basic needs met and are respected before the law. It's like, but then you watch these militant groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad and what they're saying. It's like, no, they don't want any of that. They want to just destroy Israel and replace it with something much, much, much worse.
At least they have the courage to explicitly say what they're after. I don't know if it even counts as courage, but they have this, they just say it, You can't say that about those people that Kirk described. That's right.
Well, even if they say the problem is the West wouldn't hear it. So even if Hamas can say we want an elimination of Israel, which they do have in their founding charter, as well as we want an elimination of Israel and establishment of a theocratic state in the region of Palestine. They can have that there, but no one cares because they refuse to see the evil for what it is. We also have a super chat from Enric. Thank you so much. And we have a super chat from Bonnie. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. Enric says, AP reporting Israel kills 9 Palestinians in West Bank anti-terror operation. AP, which news is that? AP is supposed to be neutral press questioning operation. Maybe Enric can tell me because I think I know what it is. But so moving on, just to cover a bit more the Associated Press. That's what it is. So moving on into Antonio Guterres a bit more. So yeah, as soon as the news came out, he tweeted. He both had a tweet picture, and also he said something talking about the Israeli action. It's fueling an already explosive situation in the occupied West Bank and further undermining the Palestinian Authority, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, and also only an end to an occupation and a return to a meaningful political process that will establish a two-state solution will bring an end to violence. And again, you see this, it's always Israel, it's always Israel's fault. Like, again, he's not talking about the fact that there was a potential suicide bombing that could have been horrible. I mean, suicide bombings haven't really been happening in Israel for a long time. This was something that has been, maybe Jonathan can remind me, was it the first or the second Intifada that it was mainly happening? Or was it
the second Intifada?
The second.
Yes.
So that was a terrible situation. And that among the Hamas leadership, that there have been actually just right now calls for more suicide bombings in the West Bank, basically for them to start happening. And again, you don't see Antonio Guterres calling them out. You don't see Antonio Guterres saying they are escalating situation. It's always Israel that is escalating. It's never Hamas or any of these terrorist groups, or it's never a problem of the Palestinian Authority. Because again, question is, why is there so much terrorism coming out of the West Bank? Palestinian Authority does have powers. It is controlling territories. These two or these cities that IDF has been operating are in the Area A, which is controlled by the Palestinian Authority. Yet Palestinian Authority is not doesn't take any blame for the fact that there are terrorist groups operating in there.
And not only that, Dan, but there's talk about them needing to take over Gaza. And these guys, they don't even control their own little, awful villages. So we're expecting them to also be able to control Gaza, which was tried, by the way, in 2005. So Yeah, it's effectively an anarchic state. So I always like to say that it's bizarre that our anarcho-capitalist friends don't mention that as a great example of an anarchy.
We also have a super chat from Ginger. Thank you so much. Who said Associated Press is as bad as the New York Times. They are really biased. So I don't know specifically about those. I usually just like go through the article and just see whatever they say, but I usually read about on any given issue. I usually read like as many different articles as I say. So it's hard to even like see necessarily the bias because I walk out with pretty much all the information there is. But Kirk, anything you'd like to add?
Just more proof that the best thing you can say about the United Nations is that it's a useless organization, but oftentimes it's even worse than that, as we can see with the antics of Antonio Guterres.
What significance does it have that he has this role and he's tweeting these things? What does it matter? What does it hold in the grand scheme of things? What does it matter?
Wait, do you mean like what are his powers or?
Yeah, what can he do? He can say things. Okay, we all say things, right? What does it matter?
He can
We're
do
here talking.
Well,
Yeah,
he is the one who brings issues into the UN Security Council. So
Yes.
when it comes to like his specific head, he has a lot of power when it comes to, in a sense, his position. So I think that's why it's really problematic. And he has used it in the past. He has used it in the past against Israel, even just in this conflict. I'm trying to remember what was the specific case, but I think it was with the humanitarian disaster, or at least that's what it was called. But again, I think it was calling for immediate ceasefire. That was it. After about a week after.
Yeah, but let's say we're at the Security Council. There's a nice conference. There's a nice buffet outside, and they're sitting. They're having a conference. We're gonna vote immediate ceasefire, okay? And everybody votes yes, we want immediate ceasefire. Then what happens? They invade Israel and force a ceasefire.
So I'd have to go, like, I think even when it comes to UN Security Council, there still has to be a certain amount of basically willing full cooperation. But I know UN Security Council did like, did things in the past. I'd have to like research them specifically about how it worked. I know there's, for example, in Cyprus, you still have the UN peacekeepers. In the past, even in the case of Israel, you had the UN peacekeepers in Lebanon, you had the UN peacekeepers in Egypt. They were useless in both cases, but I think
there's much of peacekeepers when they.
Well, they kept peace until they didn't.
Yeah. I think my point is that I think this goes to the deeper issue here, is the sanction of the victim. And Israel is giving their sanction to this whole circus. Why are we sitting there listening to them talking about, how awful we are? Why do we even entertain them with our presence there? Why waste our tax money on that? Why we need every dollar to pay for more ammunition? Why do we cooperate? That's my question, because it's clearly not in our interest. It's clearly everything is against us. So I think the core of the problem is the way Israel as a country is behaving. We just give them our sanction. We say, oh yeah, you can say that. We'll just sit here, and then we will say something conventional afterwards, and we'll continue having this circus while our soldiers are dying at the battlefronts, trying to protect the lives of the Israelis. I think it's cynical and disgusting that we are even there.
Yeah, I think fundamentally Israel is trying to appease or earn grace with countries that are fundamentally opposed to it. Just you could talk about the Oslo Accords, you could talk about the Abraham Accords. Israel is trying to basically, or even before October 7th, there were talks about normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia, and
Which is a horrible idea. Yeah.
And you see Israel keeps want to, in a sense, it comes from sort of like a good source. It just wants to be kept alone, but it fundamentally ignores that other countries don't want to leave Israel alone, and it ignores basically what needs to be done.
Well, they can still support Israel without this corrupted institution. One of the founder of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, said very famously about the United Nations. I think I've said it here previously. He said, Shmu. Means UN in Hebrew. Shmu. It's meaningless. He was saying it when I asked him, what do you think about the resolution? Why they said Zionism is racism? It's meaningless. I know what's right. I know that I'm in the right. I don't need them to tell me. And Switzerland, for example, wasn't in the UN until 2003, and I think Switzerland did all right and still doing, probably is doing now worse than it did before joining the UN.
Yeah, Taiwan, it's not in the United States. Yeah, look, the United Nations doesn't really have like any like political power in the sense of like military might. They can't enforce their goofy ass international law, but they are, for better or worse, they are a well-respected institution, especially amongst political types, activist types. They're like whenever like the UN, the IPCC puts out a new report, like the media just runs with it and says, oh, that they predict climate change is going to destroy the planet or whatever. During COVID, the World Health Organization, which is part of the United Nations, they were very well respected. I know YouTube would take down videos if the video was found to like contradict any of the World Health Organization's stuff on COVID. And I imagine a lot of people, maybe they cherry pick it when it comes to the United Nations. But if they see someone like Antonio Gutierrez, like, saying Israel has to stop, they'll say, well, if the UN is saying, then maybe Israel is the bad guys or are as bad as their enemies, or maybe Israel is going too far or whatever.
I propose the following, okay? And I want to hear your guys' opinions. I'm saying
Israel. Before you go to the proposal, let me just mention something, because Kirk, I think, mentioned real well that Taiwan is not in the UN, but it's not because Taiwan is not willing to join the UN or something like that. It's because to join the UN, the five countries at the five permanent members of the Security Council have to agree. One of those members is China. China doesn't even recognize Taiwan's independence, so it's obviously not gonna allow Taiwan to go into it. And then the other side of the coin is because when COVID sort of started happening, Taiwan is not also part of the WHO, the World Health Organization. So it was also very skeptic of anything coming out of the WHO. And that was one of the big reasons Taiwan has probably, I think, one of the best records when it came to combating COVID-19, because it just, it pretty much was independent in thinking and didn't rely on anything coming out of China or the WHO.
Yeah, it's a good point. So my proposition. Okay, I have a proposal. We are Israel. We say, okay, we're bad. You're right. We're evil. We're nasty. We're living here. Take the Palestinians. Give them the seat. They can have our seat. You can say we're the state of Palestine. Everything. You can sit and do your talking there in New York. We go on our plane. We go back. And then we invade Gaza and the West Bank, and we get rid of the Palestinian state and all the entities, and that's it. And we have peace finally. And you want Palestine? Come get it. That should be the attitude. This is, I think, the best way to go about the UN.
So I don't think that's really even like a problem with the UN. So I think while and I'm trying to remember, I think officially its Palestinian territories are not directly part of the UN, but are, I think, like an observing member or something in that regard. Again, because I think if they asked officially to join, I think some of the other countries might have a problem. But there are actually pushes too for the Palestinian territories, which are currently represented by the Palestinian Authority, to become an actual member of the UN, which again would make no sense because again, the Palestinian territories have have not that big of a international recognition. Again, they don't really have a defined borders. As I said, there is a rampant terrorism coming out of the West Bank. Even specifically when it comes to Palestinian Authority, something we have talked about in the past. Palestinian Authority has what's called a Martyrs Fund. Basically, if you die or if you kill Jews, or if you die in the process of killing Jews, if you survive, or your family, if you die, will be rewarded for it. And again, this is not something that, well, Hamas has their own thing also, but this is not something that's like, oh, that's just Hamas. No, the Palestinian Authority, that's who originally started with this idea. I mean, just remember, Palestinian Authority didn't just randomly appear in the West Bank. In a sense, the biggest part of the Palestinian Authority, or basically the government, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, was a terrorist organization that was jumping across the Middle East, attacking Israel from where it could find, and also getting kicked out of many nations because even Arabs were not really fond of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. But again, this is also why I'm really afraid about what's going to happen after this. And if Hamas survives in any capacity whatsoever, I'm afraid that they will become the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and they'll be out of this area for a little bit, and then we will have Oslo Accords 2.0, where let's talk with Yasser Arafat
Sinwar,
was
yeah.
also a terrorist. Let's talk with Sinwar. Is this new Yasser Arafat? Let's talk with him. Let's give them territories. Let's try to make peace.
The photo shoot at the White House. Yeah. I just wanted to say that what you said about the Martyr Fund, I think, broader point on that. I think this is the most extreme example of the welfare state going very far. And I think it's consistent. Die for the state, get money. That's the ultimate sacrifice, right? So absolutely, it's another example of how the welfare state is actually killing people.
Kirk?
I don't really have anything to add at the moment.
Okay, let me just go quickly through the chat. Someone was also saying that Taiwan used to be in the UN. So maybe to clarify that, basically there was a civil war. So sort of the precursor to Taiwan, the Republic of China, was kicked out of all of China and was basically confined into the island of Taiwan. And yeah, China, basically the victors of the Second World War were giving the permanent seats at the UN Security Council. So it was Soviet Union, UK, US, and China. And after some thinking, they also gave one seat to France. And basically, yeah, I think that that was really the corruption when you saw basically.
Hold on, I thought Taiwan was given the seat, and then they gave the seat to communist China in the early 70s, if I recall correctly.
Oh, well. So that I don't know when Republic of China became Taiwan. So Republic of China had the seat, and basically, yeah, at some point, Republic of China became just Taiwan, and they changed the seats. So maybe they were called Taiwan while they were still in the UN. I'm not sure about that, but I think it's just a technical thing. But yeah, I don't think I have.
I just make comment on what I see on the chat. Somebody said that it's a shame to call Sinwar Arafat. First, I don't think it was deliberate, but and then he said Arafat isn't as bad as Sinwar. What's the difference? They both wanted the same thing. They're both murdering people. Just Sinwar was much more successful at it. That's the difference. So I don't think there's such a big ideological difference. Maybe Sinwar is more of a mystic. It's both mysticism. It's both, the result is the same. So
I mean,
I don't
I
think.
think fundamentally Arafat is much better. The fact that uh, Palis the PLO was in a sense given a part of the West Bank and was now able to establish itself and also getting the control of Gaza, which later was taken over by Hamas, that allowed the rise of people like Sinwar. The fact that the Palestinian Authority was established, the fact that Yasser Arafat was able to establish the Palestinian Authority and given rise to these more radical groups, I think it's much worse comparatively. But yeah, I think it would depend on what's
Arafat
yours.
said about the Oslo Accords that they are El Hudaybiyah agreement. He means to break it. That's a Muslim tradition, to cut a deal, and then when the enemy is weak, they will break the deal and then they will invade. I think his final goal was exactly the same as Sinwar, to annihilate this Jewish state. I don't think Arafat was for the Jewish state in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, you can just go to history. It's always, the Arabic states in whatever capacity they exist at the moment try to eradicate Israel. And when they eventually fail, they'll start calling to get back to before the war, to get back to the situation that was before the war. And that kept happening. Either the War of Independence, the first Arab-Israeli conflict, the 6 Day War, now you could also, the first and the second Intifada. Now this Israeli-Hamas conflict. They are always calling for what I had previously. If there was a genuine, like I've always said, if there was a genuine, uh, basically genuine belief that the Palestinians want to basically live peacefully with Israelis in a two-state solution, you don't even need a two-state solution. If the Palestinians are going to live peacefully with the Israelis, you could just have one state. You have Arabs living in Israel. It still has some problems. They still have the fact that they are also not forced to serve in the IDF. So there is this sort of a bit of an imbalance, a bit of a different situation. But they have their own parties, they have their own political parties. I think that's something I always dislike about ethnic groups, the fact that they found a separate political parties just based around the sort of ethnic group instead of just joining the other parties based on beliefs. Either you could have socialist Arabs, you could have capitalist Arabs, conservative Arabs, liberal Arabs. Instead, they just sort of like group around Arabs, and I found that very problematic. But again, if they were willing to live peaceful, you could just have a one state or two states. It really wouldn't have mattered, because the problem isn't that Israelis, just have this like a priori belief that Arabs don't deserve a state. You have Arabs all over the place in the Middle East. It's the fact that whatever power they are given, in a sense, the governing power or a power to basically conduct their own operations, they always use it to attack Israel. Whatever autonomy they are given, when Israel pulled out of Gaza, as soon as Hamas took over, they started shooting rockets at Israel. That's what is always done, and that is the problem.
Yeah, and beforehand I was like looking up the history of Palestinian Islamic Jihad and seeing what they were about, and when looking into various Wikipedia articles and revisiting Elon Journal's book What Justice Demands, talking about what we were talking about earlier, I guess what happened is that after 1967, a lot of the Arab nationalists began to give up on their whole ideology of Arab nationalism, and they looked for other ideologies and other solutions to this conflict. And I guess Islamists and jihadists were happy to fill the void. Elon Journal talks about this, how the founding members of Islamic Palestinian Jihad was once an Arab nationalist, and then after 1967, he joined the Muslim Brotherhood, and then got exposed to Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and that the 79 revolution is what was a huge turning point. That's what like really inspired him, and that was one of the reasons why Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It was a different thing from the failed ideologies of the past. And on top of that, going back to what Jonathan was saying earlier, the fact that, the guy in the video, he's a real believer in his ideas. That's one thing that the jihadists had to offer was some religious, what word am I looking for? Like, like, oh, we're serving God, we're serving Allah, we're doing God's
an
justice.
Ideal, yeah. They gave an ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives them something more to fight for, and they're not going to what Daniel was saying. These people, they don't really want peace with Israel. They want to completely destroy Israel, and I think this is also something they differ with the PLO on. They see the PLO as somewhat compromisers. Oh, you guys want these two states, and you're fine with that? No, that's not enough for Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They want to completely destroy Israel, much like Hamas wants to do. And when really thinking about it, I'm like, is this group any different from like Hamas or Hezbollah or the Revolutionary Guards in Iran? And it's like, I feel like, trying to like separate all of these militant groups. It's like going to a party, a costume party where everyone's trying to be the Joker. Everyone's a different kind of Joker. Like you have the Cesar Romero Joker and the Heath Ledger Joker and the Jack Nicholson Joker, even the goofy Jared Leto Joker and the Mark Hamill Joker. It's like, they're all different Jokers, but they're ultimately the same thing. They're trying to be the same thing. They just wear different colors and maybe speak a little bit different. That's all these Islamic jihadist groups that are trying to destroy Israel. They all ultimately want the same thing, but maybe they fly different flags and have different means of trying to achieve that goal. So,
anyway. Yeah, their color is black and Hamas likes green.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking up because we talked with Kirk about all these different terrorist groups. Because when we talk about we talk about the Israeli-Hamas conflict in a sense when it comes to Gaza, but there are a lot of different groups. The second biggest is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, so it sometimes that. Someone in the chat mentions the Lions Den. That is also a terrorist group. There is also the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. There is the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which reminds me...
The People's Front and the People's Front of Judea.
It reminds me of the Life of Brian quote when they have all these popular fronts and united fronts and...
They're so united.
Yeah, so you have all these terrorist group, but as Kirk said,
I think like why the United point. You have Manchester United, you have Manchester City. What's the difference? It's the same city, right? Well, they're funded by the Abu Dhabi people, and they are funded by the Qatar people. I don't know, but yeah, that's the difference. Different teams, different gangs. They're fighting for the same. They're fighting for control.
Yeah, the only problem is all these groups are funded by the same people, and which is Iran. Something that Kirk mentioned. Yeah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad has big ties to Iran, as do many of these groups. I mean, we've talked about Hamas. We've talked about. I mean, Hezbollah has been created in an image, in a sense, of the Revolutionary Guard in Iran, and they have been created with a sort of a blessing from the Ayatollah. So yeah, I think okay. I think we've talked about this well enough. Anything you guys like to finish up? Anything you'd like to add?
I think it's important to remember that ideas are the source of all this, and to really defeat the enemy, we have to provide. First, we have to expose their evil, but we also have to provide a positive alternative of reason, purpose, and self-esteem. So that is super important that you go and read Ayn Rand, which provides the only alternative moral framework to that of the jihadists. So I'd really recommend our viewers to check out Atlas Shrugged. And yeah, that's the final call to
And
action.
actually, something you reminded me that I actually haven't finished my thought from like 15 minutes ago, because we've talked about I've talked about basically I don't think UN in a sense matters that much. If Israel was willing to fulfill its responsibility to its citizens, which means the protection of their individual rights and the fact that they are currently threatened by, at the very least, Hamas, and basically what needs to be done, what Israel needs to do is eliminate Hamas and secure control over Gaza to again fulfill its responsibility to its citizens, which is the protection of their individual rights. So I think if Israel was willing to do that, I don't think anyone could stood up for it, because I think the only weapon that works against, a confident nation or someone who is morally confident in themselves is their own morality. And if you can't use that, any weapon you try to use is powerless. Anything you'd like to add, Kirk?
No, just add to Jonathan's point earlier that, yeah, ideas do matter. And when looking at all these jokers, as I call them, the jihadist groups, and their, how the fact that the revolution, the Islamic Revolution in Iran was a turning point. One of the big appeals of Ayatollah Khomeini was that he had moral certainty. He took his ideas seriously, as crazy as they were. And that's why the revolution ultimately, really got behind him, because he was very morally consistent. He knew what he believed in and he wasn't afraid of it. I mean, the guy was just exiled a few years before returning to Iran. This guy was constantly getting in trouble I think even Saddam Hussein ended up exiling him, if I recall correctly. But yeah, he took ideas seriously. And on top of that, even worse, he inspired a lot of copycats and a lot of followers to really continue his cause, because he showed that yeah, if you overthrow a Western government like the Shah, even if it's supported by the United States, the United States won't really do much about it. They'll just let you get away with it. And 40 years later, and we have all these groups tied to Iran who are inspired by some old goof 40 years ago. And yeah, it just yeah, we need more moral certainty, as Jonathan said, more moral certainty, more moral clarity in the West. And I think the best set of ideas for that is Ayn Rand. So,
Jonathan, where can people find you?
Dear viewers may find me on Substack at philosophyIneedit.com. The link is in the description. Thank you very much.
Kirk, where can people find you?
you can find me on Elon Musk's website at Kirk Wilcox. You can find me here on YouTube. Just search my name, Kirk Wilcox, and I'm sure my channel, my videos will show up. And again, for anyone who might be new, yeah, I have a lot of videos on this topic, talking about the history of Iran and its role in the current conflict between Israel and Palestinians.
Yeah, I think you've done a video on Operation Ajax, so I really recommend that one. That was a really well done video. And you can find me also on YouTube, Damned Dan. All of the links, as Jonathan mentioned, are in the description. We'll see you tomorrow with another episode of The Daily Objective and the reality show. Until then, bye-bye.